For our meditation today, we will turn to Psalm 126. Psalm 126. I'm reading it. A song of ascents. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. Restore our fortunes, Lord, like streams in the Negev. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. May the Lord bless the portion that we have read from the Bible. This psalm, and in fact, this set of psalms need a little introduction. This psalm is titled as a song of ascents. In some versions, it's titled as a psalm of or a song of pilgrimage. This Psalm 126 is the seventh of a set of 15 psalms. We can also say that seventh of the set of 15 songs because they were sung by the Israelites. Then why were they called as songs of ascents or songs of pilgrimage? Actually, both mean same. They both mean the same thing. Because they were sung during the times of pilgrimage, they were called as songs of pilgrimage or psalms of pilgrimage. On three important festivals, the Israelites used to go to the temple in Jerusalem. The festival of the weeks, the festival of tents, and the Passover festival. These were the three important occasions on which Israelites used to make a trip to the temple in Jerusalem. They used to go as communities in pilgrimage. So that's why these psalms were called as psalms of pilgrimage. They used to sing these songs, this set of 15 psalms, starting from 120 to 134. All these are titled as psalms of ascents or psalms of pilgrimage. Since they used to go to a higher altitude to reach the temple in Jerusalem, these songs are also titled as songs of ascents because they used to slowly go step by step upward to reach this higher latitude. So that's why they are titled as psalms or songs of ascents. They used to ascend to go to the temple. I was also looking at the altitudes of different places. I use the word latitude, not latitude, sorry, altitude. Temple or even Jerusalem city was at a higher altitude compared to some of the places around that. In fact, Dead Sea has the lowest altitude level, mean sea level compared to any other place in the world. Some people who were living even around the Dead Sea also used to go on pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And if we read this psalm, we get to know two important images or two important pictures. The first one is about somebody who was joyful. The second one is about somebody who was crying and weeping, expecting joy at the end. So what title could we give to this song? I gave this title like this. It's a song of joy and tears of sorrow. We can also simply say that it's a song of joy. Why is it that we can call it a song of joy? Because this word joy is used at least 4 times in this song. Shall we look at the verses? Verse 2. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. So this is the first occurrence of this word joy in this song. The second one, verse 3. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. This is the second occurrence of this word. Now, verse 5. Verse 5. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. This is the third occurrence of this term joy. Verse 6. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. This is the fourth occurrence. So this word joy is repeated 4 times in this psalm. So I think we can easily give this title to this psalm as Song of Joy. But there are also 2 similar words that are used here, which are kind of opposite to the word joy. What are they? Verse 5. Those who sow with tears. And verse 6. Those who go out weeping. There is also a mention of shedding tears, a mention of weeping or crying, So that's why I said we can title it as a song of joy and tears of sorrow, joy and tears of sorrow. We can simply even say that this is a song of joy because ultimately even those who shed tears will achieve joy on their faces, in their hearts. What was the reason that the Israelites were singing this jubilantly? If we read verses 1, 2, and 3, we would understand about their happiness, about their feeling of joy in them. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Actually, there was a time in the history of Israel where they were sent into captivity, Babylon. Particularly, Judah was sent into Babylon as captives, or as a captive tribe. And Assyrians, they had taken 10 tribes as captives, along with Judah. The tribe of Benjamin also had gone into Babylon. So 2 tribes went into Babylon as captives, and 10 tribes were taken by Assyrian kingdom as captives. And they had no clue as to when they would be released. Being taken as a slave to some other country is a kind of an undesirable experience. As I think probably some time back mentioned, I worked among Afghanistan refugees in Delhi. We were able to see the misery of some of them. Compared to some of the poor people in India, they were better financially. They were to some extent affluent, but there were also some people who were like destitutes. There was a lady who was married many times, and she was divorced, and then she had a daughter, and she also had other children, but she never was able to bring those sons because her husband had kept them with him. And she was supported a little bit by the church because she had given her heart to the Lord, and then she was part of a church, an Afghan church. And on a meager income resource, she was surviving. And different families of these Afghan refugees had different problems. When you are a refugee in another land, you don't have your rights that normal citizens will have, and you will have different kinds of difficulties. And these people were taken as captives, and God was there with them even in Babylon. But of course, they would not have enjoyed their life as they would otherwise enjoy their life in their native land, Israel. And they had to wait for a long many years for their release. So there was a prophecy given about their release after 70 years of stay in Babylon. They had no clue as to how they would be released because Babylonian kingdom was a very mighty kingdom. No king generally would like to lose the captives that he had won. No king would like to release the people to go back to their land. That's the normal trend that we see. And in olden days, if anybody had captured another nation, why would he release them to go back to their land? No? He wouldn't, generally speaking. But there was a prophecy from God. I'm not sure as to how many people really trusted that and then waited for God's intervention for their release. But definitely, people must have been praying. The whole tribe of Judah and even tribe of Benjamin must have been praying. And even others scattered in other nations also, they would have been praying for the release and for coming back to their country. But they were anxiously waiting. Some probably would have settled there, even built houses also. And they would have begot their sons and daughters. They would have even gotten married. They would have settled their children in families. And they probably were kind of resting in that country, doing their routine things. But God's promise definitely would have been coming to their memory often. But they had no clue as to how they would be released. But here came a time when, as per the prophecy that was made by Isaiah, there came a king in Persia. His name was Cyrus. He was not from Babylon. Initially, he was not the king of Babylon. But Cyrus, when he came to power, that time, Persia had conquered the nation of Egypt, the nation of Syria, and the nation of Babylon also. So the king of Persia at the time was the king of all these mighty countries, like king of Egypt, king of Babylon, king of Syria, and king of Persia. And he got such a good heart. In fact, in his statement, as it's recorded in the Bible, he said God only prompted him to do this. And he suddenly announced the release of Israelites, and they were told to go back to their country. They were given freedom to go back. What a wonderful news that would have been in their life at that time. When they got the news, overnight they would have started packing up things and then with a view to go back to their country. They would have definitely felt that going back to their country would give them better joy than staying in houses there in Babylon. And their feelings of joy are very clearly expressed in these first three verses. I'm reading them. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. It was like a dream coming true in our life. Actually, these people probably at a later stage, the descendants of those people who had first-hand experience of the release from the bondage of Babylon would have sung the song, and these people would have been repeatedly singing a song whenever they had gone on pilgrimage to Jerusalem. They would have only heard from their fathers as to how God released them from the bondage of Babylon. But whenever they thought about that, God's wonderful release, God's wonderful redemption from Babylon, their hearts were filled with joy and gratitude, and they were singing with all their might, probably. And these were the songs that were sung by communities of people. Even in India, whenever people used to go for pilgrimages, they used to hire a bus those days, long back, probably 30, 40 years back, they used to hire a bus, or they used to book a train compartment, and they used to travel together as a community of people. Sometimes they used to take utensils also for them to cook their food on the way in different stations. And they used to sing songs together even. And this was their experience. Whenever they went as a community and pilgrimage to Jerusalem, they used to sing these songs, and one of the songs is this, Psalm 126. So it was like a dream coming true in our life. Suddenly this great news came to us, and the king told us that we could go back and rebuild our houses, rebuild the temple even, do the repairs and whatever that were needed. Verse 2, our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Generally, who would laugh profoundly or profusely to the heart's content? Who would laugh? Or when would anybody laugh to one's heart content? When he is joyful, when he is free of worries, when he is freed of difficulties. And in their experience also, something similar to that had happened. They were suddenly released. They were asked to go back. They were given freedom. And their mouths were filled with laughter, their tongues with songs of joy. And then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things to them. It's repeated. This thought is repeated in verse 3. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy because it was the Lord's doing. Somewhere, I think I asked the question to the audience: did you experience any time in your life as a dream that you were dreaming of coming true? Anytime, did any dream come true in your life? That was my question. One person said that when his son got through a very tough examination and got a central government job, it was like a dream coming true in his life. It is true. When children flourish, when children are settled in marriage, when children are settled in good jobs, having their income to feed their families, parents would be very happy. And when children accept Christ as their personal Savior, Lord and God, those believing parents would be very, very happy. Those would be happy moments there. I'm sure even in our lives also as children of God, we would have experienced such things because God is the one who does great things, things beyond our expectation, things beyond our imagination. If I recount the things that my family had experienced in the past, our hearts are filled with gratitude because certain things that God did in our family life were things beyond our expectation. God is wonder working God. And what they had experienced or what their ancestors, our parents, our grandparents had experienced, the reality. And that's why they were able to acknowledge this fact that God had done great things in their life. Imagine how they would have been jubilant, elated, happy when they were singing these songs as a community on their pilgrimage to Jerusalem. They would have been remembering those experiences, of their ancestors. I also had titled this at one point of time as a song of praise and prayer, because this title also is very appropriate to this. The remaining verses, if we read, they speak about prayer. They bring an element of prayer in them. Verses 4, 5, and 6. Let's read them. Verse 4, restore our fortunes, Lord, like streams in the Negev. There's a beautiful description. There is some comparison here. We will come to that. Verse 5, those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. Here even, people, when they go weeping, they will come back with joy. People, when they go with a few seeds in their hand or in the bag, expecting great harvest, when they really receive such a harvest, they come back home with great joy. This weeping and shedding of tears would result in experiencing moments of joy in their life. What does this mean? What does this weeping and shedding of tears mean? They mean two things. When we cry out to the Lord for the solution to our problems, for a solution to our problems, when we cry out to the Lord for difficulties to be taken away, and for answers to our petitions, it will be like weeping and crying because our hearts will be filled with burden, and we will go to God's presence with burden, and we put our trust in Him, and we cry out to Him, and we wait patiently for the Lord to do His work. And at the end of the day, when we get the result, when we get a solution to a problem, when we get an answer to a petition, our hearts will be filled with joy. And this we need to remember. That was the feeling that even Israelites had. Even when they had come back, they had this thought on their mind. That's why it is nicely portrayed. As I said in the beginning, there are two pictures or two images portrayed here in this song. The first one is about the community of people laughing joyfully. The second one is about a peasant going into the field with seeds in his hand to sow, and later coming back joyfully with great harvest. The first one is about the community of people. The second one is about the community of peasants. Peasants, when they go with anxiety. They would not know how the nature would play out, and how and when they would receive adequate rains, or how and when they would receive water supply. And when there is a good harvest, they would come back with joy in their hearts. Verse 4, let's just focus a little bit to understand their feelings. Though they had come back, they had a prayer on their hearts, prayer to God. What was their prayer? Restore our fortunes, Lord, like streams in the Negev. When they came back, probably they would have found their houses to be in dilapidated condition, in bad condition. They probably had needed to repair them. Probably the lands were barren for a long time. They had to till the soil. They had to make the land proper, that it could receive receive seeds. They had to do a lot of work. Restoring fortunes, probably at that juncture for them, was a big exercise. Even though they had come back to their land, things were not in proper shape to them. So they had to toil. They had to trust the Lord. They had to cry out to the Lord for the restoration. In the beginning, they were restored back to their country. Here they had to restore their property and fortunes, their possessions, their inheritance. There are two kinds of restorations here. First one was done by God because He did great things in their life. And here they are crying out to the Lord that God would restore them, their fortunes. God would help them to repair their houses. God would help them that they would till the soil and sow the seeds in the lands that were not treated properly, that were barren for quite a long time, or that were not probably given enough fertilizer, natural or other fertilizers. So they had to do a lot of work. When we think about restoration, there are two things that we need to understand. One is depending upon the Lord, putting our trust in Him. Second thing, working hard. Many times believers, they expect God to do great things, but they don't like to work. But that's not the case here. They want to do their work. They want to take the seeds and sow. They want to put hard work. They wanted to expect great harvest. And as they were working hard, they were also looking unto God for the restoration of their fortunes. Then why was this restoration of fortunes compared to the streams in the Negev? Actually, Negev is in the southern part of Judah. If you see the maps, we would also find a city called Beersheba in the northern part of Negev. It's just on the border of Negev and Upper Judah, no? It's a dry land. Negev is a dry land. There are a few universities established, even research institutes established. I think Ben Gurion Research Institute on dry land management and desert management is there in Negev. These institutions or institutes, they research on improving the land's topography and in irrigating the land so that crops could be produced in that land. Then why is it talking about streams in the Negev? Actually, in Beersheba, during Abraham's time, there was a well dug, but other people came and then they claimed it to themselves. And even in Isaac's time, there was a well dug, and other people, surrounding people, they came and then they claimed it as theirs, So there was a struggle for water in that land. When you dig a well, if you get water, oh, you are blessed. But what happens in the Negev is that in some seasons, there will be torrential rains. Whenever such torrential rains are there for a brief period, all the streams will be filled with water. There would be small impounding tanks, they would be filled with water. They are called as small pockets, depressions in the soil, they will hold water. They are like ponds, impounding ponds. They will just catch that water, hold that water during that particular season where are the torrential rains. In tropical areas, in such areas, dry areas, sometimes this happens. Even in India, the southern part of India, the tropical lands, suddenly during summer season, during particularly rainy season, there will be such torrential rains. Thunderbolts will be there during that time. Such things also were happening. When such torrential rains were there, the streams used to be full, only for a brief period. But these people were comparing the restoration of their fortunes to the torrential rains, which would make the streams or the small rivers or the small streams, to swell over, to overflow. Lord, help us that we will restore our fortunes fully. And your abundant grace may be extended to us. That was their prayer. Then what is the takeaway from this? First one, we can thank God because we were also, when we were not born again, we were in the captivity like the Babylonian captivity. Like those days, God sent Cyrus to suddenly declare freedom and to release them from the captivity that they would go back to Israel. God sent his son, Lord Jesus Christ. We received redemption. Whatever was needed was paid by the Lord. Heavy payment is blood for us, redeemed us. And that's why our hearts are filled with gratitude. But the story is not over. Our spiritual walk is there. And as long as we live on this earth, we need to walk spiritually. We need God's grace and help. Supposing we have won over a particular temptation, it doesn't guarantee that we will win over all other temptations. We need to trust the Lord and depend upon Him for victory again. And God would help us. God would give victory after victory over temptations. God would take us to greater heights of spirituality. God would bless us and shower His blessings upon us. If we really are seeking from the Lord, God would bestow skills and talents to do His ministry, to be used of Him, So that prayer we need to have. But that prayer they also had. And the prayer is nicely portrayed here in the form of a peasant going to sow seeds, expecting great harvest. And when he receives great harvest, his heart would be filled with joy, or her heart would be filled with joy. And we can also claim this for ourselves that God would take us to greater heights of spirituality. God would meet our needs. God would give victories after victories, and our hearts could be filled with it. And with these thoughts, they were going on pilgrimage 3 times a year minimum. Some other times they would have gone, probably personally or family-wise, they would have gone, but as community, minimum of 3 times they were going on pilgrimage, singing the songs of joy, songs of praises, songs of prayer also. And may such songs of praise and prayer remain in us. They may infuse great joy in our hearts, that we may live worthy of His. May the Lord bless these thoughts.